Hey everybody, today is the beginning of our series where we're going to be talking about the things that you can do at home after your adjustment to make sure that your pregnancy is awesome, keeping your body moving, as well again as optimizing that fetal positioning for the big event coming up in a couple of weeks or months for you depending where you are gestationally. This one's gonna be really simple, and I talk about this one a lot. If you're on my Facebook page or you're on my Instagram, it comes up pretty regularly, so don't be too surprised. Again, this is going to closely monitor a lot of the recommendations made by Spinning Babies just because I'm a huge fan of their work. Number one, super easy, walking. Again, I kind of mentioned this in my introductory video. A lot of times people think that movements have to be big, they have to be powerful to be effective, and that's not true. It's the idea, I forget who it was, there was someone who used to say that when you breathe at night, you lift weights, right? When you breathe, you lift and lower the quilt on your chest. So that's actually a form of exercise. Similarly, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about subtle movements that keep your body healthy. Let's talk about why walking in different stages of labor is going to help you achieve your goals. Number one, in early pregnancy, you can have some stiffness, you can have some nausea. There's a lot of interesting research about the pelvic girdle and how the muscles stimulated in that area can actually help with nausea, potentially help with progesterone and maintaining pregnancy. It's a really interesting world out there. I'd love to send you a couple of research articles if you're interested. From there, in the second trimester is where we start to look a little bit deeper at things like gestational diabetes. That's when you're going to do a lot of your foundational nutrition stuff. I always tell people in the first trimester, it's really like the Wild West. Personally, I did not have insane amounts of morning sickness, but I did have to eat much more regularly than I normally did. I also didn't gain a lot of weight in my pregnancies. I don't judge people that do. I just didn't. And I think part of that for me was because it took me a while to understand that I had to eat probably like every 2 hours to not feel sick. So in the second trimester, that's when we're going to start talking about things like different development. Things are a little bit more, they're macro. So like if you look at a gestation like 8 to 11 weeks, you're going to see what I call like a little gummy bear. There's technically arm buds and leg buds, but there's not a lot of like baby looking material. The second trimester is things really explode. And so I think that typically the second trimester is a great time to really institute a lot of good habits that will carry out throughout your pregnancy. It's much easier to do, for instance, a forward-leaning inversion, which we'll talk about. It's much easier to practice doing a forward-leaning inversion when you're like 16 to 20 weeks than it is to start doing them when you're like 36 weeks. So walking in this capacity is going to be setting up a good habit, and it can also actually help with stress in a gambit of ways. The first one is, of course, exercise helps your stress levels. I recommend walking if you have a patch of grass anywhere accessible to you. Walking barefoot on that grass is going to be really good for you. On the woo-woo side, we could talk about grounding and earthing and things like that, but also on the bottoms of your feet, you have a lot of nerves, and so stimulating those nerves with different senses on your feet can actually help any low back pain, any tightness that you have in your body. It basically draws your brain's attention from wherever that pain is down lower into your feet. So in the second trimester, it's good to get walking like that. Also, I'm a huge fan of, there's a really interesting correlation to vitamin D deficiency and C-sections. So a person who's vitamin D deficient is more likely to have a C-section. So I say if you can be barefoot in the grass, great. And if you can be barefoot in the grass wearing like a tank top and shorts, or just a tank top, or even if it's just 15 minutes of like a t-shirt, if it's in the winter months, really getting outside and getting some of that sun exposure for, like I said, 15 to 20 minutes max is going to be great. Now, if you are vitamin D deficient already, there is a chance you may need to supplement. That's a different topic for a different day, but I say anything that you can absorb naturally is going to be really great. I will say just on that, I noticed that when I was pregnant, I had a lot of different skin sensitivities that I had when I wasn't pregnant, and I don't even have those issues now. But if you're outside and you start to notice splotchiness on your face, or you start to notice that you're getting red really quickly, there are actually other things that you can do to help your vitamin D absorption without compromising the health of your skin and risking things down the road. Now, in your third trimester, walking can be really helpful as you want your baby to engage. So in the perfect world, your baby, in the perfect world, in many models, not always, your baby would be head down and engaged at your pubic bone or below when you go into labor. There's a lot of talk, and again, these are more things that we'll talk about down the road, but there's a talk about fetal positioning and like where you want your baby to be. In general, we want your baby to be left occiput anterior, LOA. Left transverse, I think, is also okay, but LOA is like the sweet spot. A lot of times moms come to me after visiting the Spinning Babies website and they're like, oh my gosh, my baby is ROA. Does this mean I'm gonna have a long labor? I'm gonna have a sunny side up baby? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that at all. However, walking with good posture, walking with a good pace, walking to the point where you can hold a conversation but you can't have like a monologue, is gonna help. Not only is it gonna help your cardiovascular integrity. I would like to say that birth and labor is a cardiovascular event. It's a pretty athletic event, but also when you're walking and you're getting that side to side movement in your hips, that's giving your baby the opportunity to go down lower. The cool thing about walking is it's not super aggressive, so you're not gonna have your baby drop too low too early. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. It's best for them. I always tell people, and this will be a theme of these videos, that babies are incredibly smart. All we have to do is get out of their way. They know what's up. They know better than we do, and they can see, well, not necessarily literally see, but they can feel and interpret what's going on in their environment better than we can. So walking is a great gentle way to make sure that your body is preparing for birth. So that's going to be day one. So if this is your first visit and you're thinking, what can I do to help my adjustment stay longer and keep me on track better? Outside, 15 minutes, minimal clothing, barefoot if possible. Now, if the only time that you can do this is on your lunch break at work and you're surrounded by concrete, that's fine too. It's not a big deal. But getting that 15 minutes of just walking consistently is going to be really great. Here's my little hack, although it's not really a hack, it's actually like a recommendation. If you have a gestational diabetes diagnosis, or if you're concerned about developing gestational diabetes due to previous pregnancies having gestational diabetes, one thing to keep in mind that a 15-minute walk after each meal can actually really help your digestion, and it can help your blood sugar regulate. The big fear with gestational diabetes, you're gonna have unregulated glucose in your bloodstream, which does go to the baby. So, all that being said, there's lots and lots and lots of benefits. I don't think you can go wrong with walking. Always check in with your midwife or your obstetrician, but most of the time, even in most high-risk pregnancies, walking is gonna be fine. If you're on bed rest, if you're on pelvic rest, that's a different story. Feel free to reach out, and obviously reach out to your birth provider, but walking is a great way to get in some exercise into your day. I also find that if you're a mom of multiples, if you have older children and you're thinking, okay, how can I incorporate this? I think going for a walk around a lake, a pond, going for a walk at the beach, anything like that, and incorporating your children into that is not only establishing good habits, it's a bonding experience for you and those children. So I hope this helps. This is sort of the beginning of a big cascade of videos that you're gonna have. And as always, 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 if you have questions, reach out. Thanks, guys. See you soon.